Good day, it's December 8, 2025. Today in history, the Philippines was attacked by Japanese Imperial Naval Forces in 1941, the same day of the Pearl Harbor attack in Hawaii that began the Pacific War in December 7 in the US. Was December 8 in the Philippines. This week, we remember Pearl Harbor. I'm Joe Buban. Welcome to the Pulse. First in our news is the mass resignation of lawyers and staff at the U.S. Department of Justice under Trump and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. Most career prosecutors had already left the DOJ, and younger prosecutors continued to resign from the department, where staff had to wrestle between keeping their job at the DOJ or upholding principles and the rule of law. Analysts and observers see a chaotic DOJ that is unrecognizable to the DOJ many of these lawyers were used to seeing, where dedication to their job as prosecutors were always guided by the rule of law and principles to pursue justice. Since Donald Trump became president, where the U.S. attorneys around the country had to resign to give the new president appoint new U.S. attorneys. Many of the deputy and assistant U.S. attorneys had been fired or quit, as many feel the DOJ is being used by the president as his personal law firm rather than the American people's lawyers in pursuit of justice. Yet Trump used the DOJ to prosecute his enemies or perceived enemies, like the former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, among others. The low morale and disgust of career prosecutors who had left had spoken publicly of a DOJ that is now unrecognizable and unqualified people in the leadership. They also spoken out of being constantly under the pressure for loyalty to Trump rather than to the rule of law. The DOJ, which is now being run by Pam Bondi, a Trump ally from Florida, and his two former defense lawyers in high-profile prosecutions against him, Emil Bove and Todd Blanche. Emil Bove, who became number 3 top official in the DOJ before being confirmed by the Senate as a judge in the U.S. Court of Appeals in the D.C. court, was mentioned in an investigation of criminal contempt caused by Judge Boasberg, who allegedly advised DOJ and DHS to ignore Judge Boasberg's order to halt the flights to El Salvador of alleged Venezuelan gang members Chuen de Aragua. The Department of Justice lost big time for the legal missteps by interim U.S. attorneys Lindsay Halligan, who was disqualified in the Comey case by federal judge Cameron Curry as an unlawful U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. Judge Curry dismissed the case against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Another of Trump's appointees is interim U.S. Attorney Alina Habba, who was declared by a federal judge as acting unlawfully because she already served more than 120 days and not confirmed by the Senate, even as her boss, Attorney General Pam Bondi, made an unconstitutional reappointment. A former Trump lawyer, Ty Cobb, who represented him in some of the lawsuits against Trump, last week suggested that Pam Bondi and Lindsay Halligan should be disbarred for their misconduct in the James Comey case grand jury. The special election for Tennessee's 7th Congressional District for the remainder of Congressman Mark Green's seat was done last week, and the result is making a lot of Republicans in Congress nervous. Democrat Afton Bean did not win the seat, but the Republican candidate Matt Van Epps won it only by 8% of all votes cast in a district won by Trump by 22% margin against Kamala Harris. So this was clearly a red district, but a Democrat overperformed in this special election. The result was a continuing encouragement for the Democrats who keep winning in special elections in many red districts in different parts of the country. A clear indication of many swing voters going to the left. A Republican campaign analyst made this statement online that if the Republicans will not change the way they do things, a net of 48 to 63 Republican seats will be lost to the Democrats in next year's midterm election, noting that any Congress member who only won by 10 points margin are all at risk. One example to this is Congresswoman Marinette Miller Meeks of Iowa's Congressional District 1, who only won in 2024 by a few hundred votes. Last week's special election also included a mayoral race in the state of Georgia, a traditional Republican state which is dramatically becoming a purple state. The Republican incumbent mayor of Roswell, Georgia, Kurt Wilson, was defeated by a Democrat who was a former member of the State of House of Representatives, Mary Robichaud, who won the mayoralty by a significant 6% margin. Kurt Wilson lost his seat in spite of the support and endorsement of the state governor, with Donald Trump's favorability rating plummeting to 41% and the Democrats sticking to their messaging of affordability and losing healthcare insurance under Trump and Republican Congress. The concern is really hitting ordinary Americans, according to multiple polling, and translates to the way they are voting in special elections. The bad news continue for the Republicans going into the midterm election. Pete Hegseth is in trouble. Lawmakers are now looking into possible violations of the law by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Last week, the admiral who was the uniformed military official in the bombing attack on a Venezuelan boat, which the administration claimed to be narco boats and passengers were narco-terrorists. Pete Hegseth, who carried out the administration's attacks on Venezuela, claiming the U.S. is at war, has been boasting the success of attacking boats in international waters that had left Venezuela. But the seriousness of what peril Secretary Hegseth may face is possible war crimes or multiple murder. A Washington Post report reveals information that Hegseth relayed an order to an admiral to, quote-unquote, kill all. No survivors, such that of the Venezuelan boat that was attacked by the U.S. off the coast of Venezuela that killed more than 80 people. There were 2 survivors clinging to the side of the boat after the drone attack. But that Hegseth ordered a kill all and a second bomb was dropped on the destroyed boat that eliminated any survivor. Lawmakers and lawyers said that if we are at war, such conduct is war crime. If we are not really at war, the conduct of killing 2 survivors is murder. The House Armed Services Committee investigation continues. Hegseth is again facing new scrutiny for his conduct in using the app Signal in communicating the military operations detail and sending top secret military operational details to people who have no security clearance. Earlier this year, Hegseth accidentally sent a message to a news outlet editor. A report from the Inspector General of the Defense Department says that Hegseth endangered the lives of troops in his use of the app Signal. President Donald Trump is now seen by observers and media outlets as meddling in the presidential election in the Latin American country of Honduras. The election contest between 67-year-old businessman and mayor of Tegucigalpa, Nasri Asfura, who is backed by Trump, led his 72-year-old rival, Salvador Nasrallah, by only 515 votes based on digital counts. The National Electoral Council declares it a technical tie and would require manual counting of the ballots. Donald Trump was quick to call it a fraud if the CNE when the electoral body said it will go into manual counting, which is a good way to verify votes tally from the machines. Trump was also quick in making a threat against Honduras. Trump said the CNE had abruptly stopped the counting and the electoral body is trying to change the vote. And if they do, there will be hell to pay. The CNE told El Salvadorans to be patient while they do the manual count. A few days before the election, Trump has pardoned the former Honduran president, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who was convicted in the U.S. for drug trafficking and was serving a 45-year prison term. Hernandez was part of Asfura's National Party. The Trump administration fired 8 immigration judges based in New York City on Monday last week, according to an official of the National Association of Immigration Judges. These judges worked in New York City's Federal Plaza, where the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is headquartered in this city. Among those fired by Trump was Armiana Khan, who supervises other judges in that office. Since the president took office in January, 98 immigration judges had been fired, besides the 12 more who resigned or took early retirement. According to some analysts and observers, the administration seems to see immigration judges as hindrance to the swift or rapid mass deportation, and is consistently being reduced in numbers in spite of historic backlogs in cases for the past 10 years. According to the Immigration Judges Association, there are now barely 600 judges all over the country, down from 700. The Justice Department had replaced most immigration judges with new appointments of lawyers with military background. Immigration judges are actually considered administrative law judges and are under the agency where they work. Not like federal judges who are not part of the executive branch but belongs to the judicial branch. Judge Beryl Howell, a senior-ranked federal judge in D.C., has ordered the Immigration and Customs Enforcement and other federal agents involved in immigration operations to stop warrantless arrests. In an 87-page decision in the case filed by the American Civil Liberties Union and other immigration advocates, Judge Howell said that traffic stops and detaining people based on color and look as suspect as being criminal aliens is unconstitutional, and the existing rule in arresting people without proper reasonable suspicion of crime will not apply in immigration stops, because being in this country illegally is not a criminal act but a civil infraction. Because of the nature of the case is civil, the authorities has to obtain a civil warrant before these arrests. This is not to say that the existing Supreme Court decision of warrantless arrest, where there is real criminal act in progress, that arrests cannot be done, but merely arresting people because you call them criminal alien is not enough. because remaining in this country illegally is not a criminal act, but a civil infraction. For more legal analysis in Judge Howell's decision, watch Midas Touch Network on YouTube and find the video by Ben Meiselas regarding Judge Howell's decision that was out last week. U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno, a Republican from Ohio, has submitted a resolution in the Senate proposing an end to dual citizenship. Senator Moreno said there are about 40 million U.S. citizens who hold a dual citizenship with another country. In his proposal, dual citizens had to register in the U.S. State Department that they are relinquishing their dual citizenship and keep only U.S. citizenship within 1 year from the passage of the law, and that if they fail to register their renunciation, they will be considered as citizen of another country. Dual citizenship is actually a law from another country, not the U.S., because the U.S. recognizes only one citizenship. But other countries like Mexico, Philippines, and many others allows naturalized U.S. citizens to reacquire previous citizenship by applying for dual citizenship for purposes of retirement in that country or being able to qualify to conduct commerce and property acquisition in their former country. For now, Senator Bernie Moreno still have majority support from his party and will likely have zero support from Democrats. We will be following this story for you and update you where it stands. Let us take a commercial break. When we come back, the world news.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. In our world news, Amnesty International requests for war crimes probe on Rapid Support Forces bombing on Sudan refugee camps, according to Al Jazeera. A war crimes probe into the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, attack on a camp of displaced people in Sudan's North Darfur province earlier this year has been demanded by human rights organizations like Amnesty International. The non-government organizations released a study on Wednesday that details the horrors of the RSF carried out during a massive assault on the Zamzam camp. The RSF has been accused of indiscriminate slaughter and mass rape, among other crimes, multiple times amid its fight with the military government of Sudan that has been running since April of 2023. The assault on the famine-stricken settlement occurred as the paramilitary group lay siege on El Fasher, the state capital of North Darfur. The RSF now has complete control of the state and is advancing eastward into the huge central Sudanese area of West Kordofan, adding to the millions of people displaced. According to the study, RSF fighters used explosives in inhabited areas and shot arbitrarily in residential areas during the raids on Zamzam and the largest concentration of internally displaced people of North Darfur state from April 11 to April 13. The dossier contains dozens of stories of violent attacks on people, with the witnesses reporting seeing RSF forces fatally shoot at least 47 residents who were hiding in their homes, fleeing the fighting, or seeking refuge in a mosque. The Rapid Support Forces' horrific and deliberate assault on desperate, hungry civilians in Zamzam camp exposed once more its alarming disregard for human life, said Amnesty International's General Secretary Agnes Callamard. Civilians were ruthlessly attacked, killed, robbed of items critical to their survival and livelihood, and left without recourse to justice. The assault, which also saw RSF fighters deliberately set fire to homes and other buildings and undertake acts that may amount to rape and pillage, caused an estimated 400,000 people to flee the camp during the 2 days alone, the report said. Based on interviews which 29 people, including witnesses, survivors, and victims' relatives, as well as videos and satellite imagery, the report is the latest to accuse the RSF of perpetrating crimes during Sudan's 30-month conflict, including massacres, summary executions, and rapes. Sudan's armed forces have also been accused of committing multiple war crimes. Survivors of the Zamzam assault have often described RSF members firing and lighting fires to drive civilians away. RSF fighters were just shouting and shooting anywhere, so that is how many people were killed. A specific individual told Amnesty International, another added, quote unquote, "You couldn't tell where the shelling was coming from. It was everywhere," unquote. One woman, a volunteer for a humanitarian organization, described an RSF fighter firing randomly from his truck as he drove by the camp's main market. Amnesty International stated that shooting without a defended military objective may constitute an indiscriminate strike, a serious violation of international humanitarian law. In a report from BBC, Russian President Vladimir Putin has begun a 2-day visit to India, where he will meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and attend the two countries' annual summit. The visit, which comes months after the US raised pressure on India to cease buying Russian oil, is anticipated to result in a number of accords between New Delhi and Moscow. It also comes as US President Trump's administration engages in a series of discussions with Russia and Ukraine in an effort to settle the conflict. India and Russia have been strong allies for decades, and Putin and Modi enjoy a good connection. Here's why they need each other and what to expect when they meet. Why are relations with India important to the Kremlin? For starters, consider the following numbers: a population around 1.5 billion. Economic growth exceeds 8%. India is the world's most rapidly growing major economy. This makes it an extremely desirable market for Russian goods and resources, particularly oil. India is the world's third largest user of crude oil and has been purchasing considerable quantities from Russia. This is not always the case. Prior to the Kremlin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Russia accounted for barely 2.5% of India's oil imports. That figure increased to 35% as India took advantage of Russian pricing cuts caused by sanctions against Moscow and Russia's limited access to the European market. India was pleased. Washington, less so. In October, the Trump administration imposed an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, claiming that by purchasing oil from Russia, India was contributing to the Kremlin's war reserve. Orders from India for Russian oil have since decreased. President Putin will be eager for India to continue buying. Weapon sales to India have long been a priority for Moscow. Ahead of Putin's visit, there were allegations that India intended to purchase cutting-edge Russian fighters and air defense equipment. Russia, which is experiencing a labor deficit, sees India as a significant supplier of trained people. However, geopolitics is also involved. The Kremlin relishes proving how Western efforts to isolate Russia over the Ukraine conflict have failed. One method to accomplish this is to fly to India to meet with Prime Minister Modi, so traveling to China and meeting with Xi Jinping, as Putin did 3 months ago. He met Modi during the same trip. The sight of the three leaders smiling and conversing together gave a clear message that despite the conflict in Ukraine, Moscow has significant supporters who accept the concept of a multipolar world. According to Reuters, the Honduran centrist retains a small lead in the presidential campaign, which is hampered by fresh delays. Salvador Nasrallah, Honduran moderate and presidential candidate, maintained a modest lead over the Trump-backed conservative Nasri Asfura on Wednesday, despite a technical issue that delayed the fourth day of the vote counting. With 79.97% of the votes counted, the Liberal Party's Nasrallah had 40.27%, just more than 14,000 votes, ahead of the National Party's Asfura, who had 39.68%. Rixi Moncada of the ruling Socialist Libre Party finished third with 19.1%. Votes counting continues. There is no clear winner yet. We are out of time for this edition. Please join us next week here at The Pulse. I'm Joe Boban. Thank you for watching and God bless your week.